Facebook, Black Life.
There we go. Meeting is now streaming live.
Going live, right? Oh, yeah. I see it now. We live. We live, baby.
Live on Facebook. All right, man. What's going on, people?
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No, that's all good. What's going on, people? This is Jelani Hashim Bracey, CEO of your favorite nonprofit, Black to Life, and I'm here with two of our board members. We have Mr. Kenny Presley, who is the executive director of Black to Life, and we also have Mr. Michael Merriweather, who is the chairman of Black to Life. If we had a studio audience, you would hear a round of applause right now. But since we don't, we're gonna get into this. So brothers, can everybody hear me? Y'all can hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So as Black to Life, man, and as a African man that is in America, I feel that what we've been seeing, I'm gonna speak for me, what I've been seeing for my whole life, for as long as I can remember, is the same story. And there needs to be drastic change. And all I can remember is, and still to this day, people are always saying that, change takes time and it takes effort and all that. Well, it's been time and it's been effort put to that. So
hold on. It hasn't been any effort to it.
No, by us. I'm talking
about by us. Okay.
Yeah, by us.
Your oppressors tell you that it takes time. They do that intentionally, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, yeah, those that are in power that have oppressed Black people and people of color do tell you that it's not time to wait. Do it in a comfortable way to them, and while we are continue to be uncomfortable. So it's time out for that. And I was just talking to the brothers earlier, people, and I realized I listened to one of Malcolm X's famous speeches, the Ballot or the Bullet. And it was my first time I really just listened to it. And I realized that, I am, and listening to that, I realized I'm a Black nationalist. And I used to run away from that word because I didn't really know what it meant until I heard how Malcolm broke it down. And I 100% agree with the definition of what a Black nationalist is. And what he brought it into was a sense of Black people, African people, controlling everything in their community, from the education, from the jobs, from the politics, to the resources, everything that comes in and out, we control that. We have our own businesses, we have our own homes, and we have control, responsibility, and power over everything in our community. Now, notice I didn't say anything about anybody else's community. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm just talking about uplifting and bringing pride and strength to underserved our communities that are usually have been underserved through the efforts of the federal government, through redlining, gerrymandering, and we can get into that later. But like I said, I initially started off by saying Black to Life is here to change the minds of everyone. I believe we need to be able to think consciously. And I was one of the ones that was awakened consciously by listening to Malcolm, because in my head, my culturally conditioned mind, I was conflating Black nationalism with what white nationalism stands for. And these things are two polar opposites, like nothing. It's like comparing the Black Panthers to the Ku Klux Klan. It's the same, it's nothing to do with nothing.
Your oppressors do that.
Right. No,
oh, look at who we got here. What's going on?
We have another board member, brother M.M. McFarn.
What's going on, guys?
Man,
what's going on, brother?
This is a treat. This is a treat.
I just ran away from the child to hide in the basement just so I could say what's up to you fellas while I still have some time.
Cool. So look, we were just talking about what it is to be an African man in America, and I was giving my take on what I've come to learn from Black nationalism. I realized I was a Black nationalist like by listening to Malcolm's speech, The Ballot and the Bullet, and he basically said, Black people own your own neighborhoods, own everything in there. You control what comes in and out, and you have the power and the responsibility of your own. But in my mind, because I have been culturally conditioned to a certain point, I've always conflated it with white nationalism, which is nothing compared to that. And like I was just telling them, it's like comparing the Black Panthers to the Ku Klux Klan. Like the Black Panthers were not a terrorist organization. They did not, drag people out of their houses and lynch them. They didn't burn churches. They didn't bomb. Like the Black Panthers were not violent. They set up a 10-point program for their community. They provided free breakfast for youngsters. They provided protection to those that felt like they were in undue harm by police and police brutality. So the Black Panthers was solid. So, but like I said, that's the same comparison. And in my culturally conditioned mind, when I heard nationalism, I just thought of, one country for, like, I don't want to kick nobody out nowhere. I don't want nobody to go home or go back to where you came from. I don't want that, but I do want my community and communities that look like me, that are underserved. I do want them to be able to have the power and the responsibility and the resources to take care of their own, because as we can see, it hasn't been working the other way. So go ahead, sir.
It's all about tools. It's all about tools, opportunities and resources and knowledge, to uplift yourself. So they talk about, constantly, hey, you got to lift yourself up by the bootstraps. But those same people saying that are expecting, different tax breaks from the government or taking advantage of federal grant programs, or even not even grant programs, contracts that have been written for businesses that they already have a leg up when they're writing to apply for those contracts. So, it's all about us having the resources. And so that's, main point of what we've been doing is, bringing those resources back to our own communities, starting off with books and now moving towards the scholarships to the teachers and, the 529s, and just letting people know about 529s. Again, it's about knowledge. Like, if you don't know those certain things, if you haven't, been introduced to those type of wealth building tools, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of them. So that's where Black to Life comes in, and we're able to uplift our community by, bringing those resources and those things that we've learned from operating in certain spaces for so long, back to our own community. And so that's the way you build up your own community. And it's not, like you said, it's not about pushing other people out. It's about, hey, let me just tell you about this 529. So when your child is born, you can put this $50 away every month. And then in 18, when that child turns 18, that $50 a month is already 20 stacks, set in stone for your kid. And it might not be the most, but it's more than zero, right? So that's what it's all about. And that's how we come in as far as uplifting our own community. It's not about, like you said, pushing people out. We utilize the resources, the connections, the networks that we have to connect other people so they have those same opportunities, and they get those same breaks, and even don't have to go through the same hoops that we have. It's all about, let's make this path a little bit easier for the next person.
He has a commercial where he goes through saying everything that he had to go through and what he did, and he built his school. And he said, "I want to make sure there are no more hard luck stories," something like that. Like, he wants to make sure, like, don't nobody have I had to struggle here, do this, do that. That's his mission in life. Like he said, I want to make sure that nobody else has to talk about that kind of story. And that's what it's about. You've been able to come up and still look to those that are still in need, because everybody, the way this capitalist society is set up, no time soon is everybody just gonna all come up. You know what I'm saying? So to your point, that's what Black to Life is here for. Like, we actually were formed to be in our communities, helping our communities, build up our communities by us and for us, because we believe that we're enough. We believe that we have the knowledge. We believe that we have the resources, and we're going to use them. So that's what Black to Life is all about. It's a, in my head, it's a form of Black nationalism. Like, it's a form of us being Black, coming into our communities and helping out. Like, and we ain't, like I said, we're not, you know, with the white nationalism, you know, this is our country. Hey, you don't need to, you know, don't complain.
It's not like we go into a school to pass out books and we only passing out books to Black kids.
Right. We passing out books to any child in that school. Any child that comes up and wants a book, man. We're about underserved communities. Like, that's our motto. That's in our mission. But we're not gonna turn away a child that wants a book, man. I don't care who this child is, what they look like, man. They want a book, we got them for free. That's why we advertise where we gonna be at. Like, pull up. If you want a book, pull up where we gonna be at, because we gonna be in the place. We're gonna be in the spot. If you want to come through the spot, come through. Yeah. Go ahead, Ken. I think
that's where the struggle is books, because early on, you know, we forced to do this reading, we forced to do these standardized tests, which is another reason why Black to Life came. Obviously, was it the 3rd or 4th grade standardized tests? That's how they pretty much build out prisons, you know. So, you know, we come in from the aspect of, like, let's help them change the narrative on a book, you know, because book reading is so boring, you know what I'm saying, early on, you know, because we're forced to read books about Tom and Harry, who we have no understanding about, and it's just boring to us. So you give us these boring books, and then we don't want to read after that, because we can't attest to the book that they're talking about. So what we're trying to do is, we all have kind of written books, you know, regarding our kids. We're trying to have books that people can actually relate to. But having books is so underrated, because number one, it helps your vocabulary, but it helps you become creative. And once you become creative, you're not going to be a conditioned type of person to do what the status quo says. So once you read a book, you're learning new words, your vocabulary is better, you're having a creative mind, you're thinking of things that you probably wasn't thinking about before you were reading a book. And it's just making you it's just challenging your mind to be better off than what it is. And I think that we can go so much further along if people tapped into their creativity at an early age. When you first going to school, you going to school to what? Go to college and get a good job. But there are some people, man, that really can do better things than just be able to go to school. I'm not an advocate for everybody to go to school. Some people can go to trade school. Some people can just learn a trade. Some people can open up businesses or whatever the case may be, but tap into your creativity and figure out what it is that you are good at, what it is that you're passionate about. Because if you do that, you will never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I believe that books provide that type of inspiration that we're missing within our communities. A lot of that inspiration does come from the books that we read. I was reading one of the books, talking about books, Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers, and people think there are really special people out there that have superhero powers, or just that much better, that much smarter, that much more gifted than, you know, the person next to you. And it really has nothing to do with that. It really has everything to do with access.
Yeah.
And that access to information, that access to privilege, whether you know you have it or not, is what sets you on that path for success. And I think what we're doing here is providing people that access to understanding what those books can give you. Let your mind run wild of whether you want to be an engineer, astronaut, scientist, or, open up your own business and how to run it, how to do the financial aspect of it, and be, multifaceted in the approach that you take. And then all the other initiatives that we're doing in bringing with mentorship and encouraging with scholarships, and like Mike said, educating people, telling them 529, even talking to them about investments. How do we run? We do our Financial Friday series, and AZ does a great job in opening people's minds about where do I put my money? You know, we're not going to stuff it in our beds anymore. You know, if Tom, Joe, and Harry over there investing in the stock market, why aren't we? You know, why are we too scared to do these things? It's because we're not educated on it. And, you know, it's been proven what you don't know, you're scared of. So I think one of the main important missions we're out here is to kind of educate that underserved community of saying, hey, we don't, you know, you don't always have to be in this repetitive and stuck in this repetitive loop that you were born into. It's not your fault, you know. First and foremost, it is not your fault. So let's get that on your mind, and there's a way out. And let's, you know, give them that opportunity to have that way out. And I think what's encouraging is between myself, AJ, Mike, Kenny, Jelani, showing successful minority brothers who are actually doing good. And it shows that, you know, here's another option. This is what you can do when you do get there. We're leaving the door open for the people coming behind us. And I feel like if we leave that door open, we get much more of a run rate to kind of pull through and continue to pull through. It's not going to happen overnight, like Janali said. It's not. But let's start somewhere and let's take advantage of the time we have right now.
Didn't your mother or your mother-in-law write a book like as soon as when your son was first born?
Yeah. Amari's Great Adventures. I mean,
Yeah.
She wrote a book. We actually just read it last night for him for bedtime. He gets excited over it, you know, and she's writing the second book. That's just, and the reason she did it is because, unfortunately, and this is to Kenny's point, there's a lot of books out there that we don't see ourselves in. So when we don't see ourselves in that book, we think this is for someone else. We're like, oh, that's a great story. And then we move on, but we don't see ourselves in that position to be able to do stuff and be imaginative and creative in what we want to do or what we look forward to doing.
Right. So, I mean, Jelani, the same thing run true for you when you wrote yours, right? Like, you know, we're out there, we're trying to find books at a decent price. We're trying to find books, you know, that fit us. That's what people ask us every time we out there passing out books. Y'all got books specifically for Black kids? And I mean, should we tell them, hey, it'd be nice, but you know, they got a nice run up and now they books now are 40 cents. We can get their books for 40 cents. You know, the books with black characters out there, the best book price we get for $3-4. So, you know, it's hard to get 1,000 books each city at that price, but you know, we figure we create our own. So
yeah, to your point, you know, my mom was like, when my son was first born, she would always, you know, she's always into that buying Black books and, you know, especially about fatherhood or whatever. So she was trying to, you know, she bought me some or whatever. And then when I was reading them, you know, it was cool, but it was like, it wasn't a story that I would say, you know what I'm saying? Like, wasn't what I was thinking. So I just decided, like, how I feel about my son, I'm just gonna write that down, and that's what came out. And like I'm on a trajectory now to like write like daddy's first books, like, you know, stuff like that. I'm gonna do that and just go with a whole series and use my kids as the characters. And if nothing else happens out of that, my kids can say, man, daddy wrote a book on us, man, a whole series. Like, yeah, man, like I did. So, and that's what you like, and it's basically I'm gonna write it to their age so they can read as they go. Like, I actually just asked my son, you know, and that's how I get some of the ideas for some of the books I'm writing in the process now. I asked him, like, man, what you like doing? Like, what you like reading about or seeing? He'll say cars, airplanes, animals. He'll just say, like, all right. So if I put that in a story with some sight words and some other words that, you know, that he's gonna have to learn going through the first, second, or third grade, he gonna get it because he likes animals. So he gonna go to like, all right, I'm gonna read about this tiger. Oh, what's that word? Yeah. What's that word? Yeah. And then the rest of the words he can know. And then that'll be his book he always reads. And that's to your point about being boring. Ask the kids what they like to read, man. And that's how I feel to make it to actually, you know, everybody's not gonna write a book, But if you want to, man, write that for your kid, like what they want to read, because it's gonna be hard learning to read if they're not interested. If they're not interested and they already have a problem, it's gonna be harder. So listen to your kids, man. If they tell you what they like to do or what they like to read, go try to find that. And if it ain't out there, man, try to create it. Like you and your kids can write it together. Stick man figures. Like it ain't got to be all artistic or whatever, but it could be a learning process that you're growing with your child. Like they sitting there writing a whole story about what they want to see, writing words down, reading the words. Man, with this COVID happening, it's just you're forced to be a more intrinsic and just to become more creative, man. Especially when you got children with small. Man,
well,
they were just making noise just to be making noise. He just wanted to make some noise because he ain't been outside so long. He just wanted to make some noise. So it's like you got to come up with something and just keep them engaged. And as parents, you know, that's one of our main duties is to keep your child engaged and focused. They get off track quick. Go ahead.
So the highest human act that you can do is inspire, and it starts with, you know, your kids. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that everybody on this call and you know, and a few other people, you know, inspired me, you know. So that's what Black to Life is to do, man. We not trying to change the world per se, although we would love to, but we need to change number one ourselves, and then our family. We all have kids. That's the first thing that we can do. That's the best thing we can do. And I think we have to educate our kids on so much what's going on. You know, I'm kind of veering off a little bit off. There's a lot going on in our society, and we have to educate our kids on what's going on because sometimes they're oblivious. You know, I think, you know, especially teenage kids, to think that we live in a post-racial society. And I think there's a lot of books, you know, there's a lot of education out there that can kind of educate them on seeing what's actually happening in our society, because they go to school and they see one thing, but when they get out there in that real world, it's something totally different, you know. And we got to have them prepared, because inspiring them today is going to have them excelling in the future, you know. So that's the best thing that we can do. And I think it's imperative that we really teach them to have some type of pride. I think Jelani chime in. We was talking about, you know, when the first Africans came in 1619, you know, and how a lot of our mindset is shaped on all the things that transpired from 1619, right? Now we got to be able to kind of shift our mind, shift our focus, shift our paradigm on how we gonna teach our kids to be better than what we are. You know what I'm saying? And that's really a dynamic thing to do, is to challenge your kids early on, so when they go to college, they can make the right decisions. So when they become, you know, get a job, their first job, they can make the right decision while still there to guide them. And that's the most important thing we can do. But you know, we would love to change the world, but it starts, you know, with these kids and at home first.
Kenny, how are you handling that with the conversations that you have? Because you and me, we in different situations, and they both got, you know, younger kids, but like your son and my son at the age now where like cops can look at them, you know, I mean, sad to say they can look at, you know, Jelani's son as a threat, but they're bigger. Like, you know, I noticed now Desmond's getting bigger, his shoulders getting wider. I'm sure that, you know, you have
How old is
Desmond's 17 now.
17.
Mother will be 17 in August.
Yeah. So what conversations you having with your son about what's going on? And I'm sure it's not the first time you had these conversations.
Nah. So honest dialogue. See, my son actually seen me get pulled off. He was in the car when I got pulled over for no reason. It was, and he at an early age knew what was going on. You know, I got pulled over in Austin, coming back to Dallas, right after the relays or whatever. Dude was like, you know, one of my tag lights was out, literally, like one tag light was out. And he was just like, man, I'm just really, it was some bull BS. And so he was asking me questions then, but then that stuff started transpiring every seemed like every year, every couple of years, man, we got somebody that's dying unarmed, and I have to really have these conversations with him about like, this is what you do, this is what you can't do, don't be a perceived threat. And that really, it really bothers me, because it's almost like back in the slave days, like literally like, don't do this to master, don't say this, don't look this way, you know. And it's just honestly straight up some bullshit. So I have honest dialogue with him, and we talk about things in depth. I talk about what he would do. I correct him if I feel like that's the way somebody would perceive it totally differently. My son is at the age where he don't really fully understand how some white people are scared of him just by being 6'3". You know what I'm saying? Like, he's tall, he got locks, you know, and he don't understand that. So I have to continuously guide him, continuously have these conversations, but also keep him abreast of what's going on in the news. You know, like George Floyd was a big topic of conversation. I'm sending him text messages as well. I'm sending him articles to read so he can get different perspectives, you know? So the best thing I can do is to really just keep the conversation going with him, because I can give him my opinion all day, but I'm a parent, right? So what you got to do is you got to have other people around him talking to him. You got to have that conversation around him with him and his homeboys. You got to give him articles to read as well to keep him engaged and let him know like things ain't what you think it is. Right. So you got to be prepared, and you have to make sure that you're doing the best you can to, unfortunately, not be a threat to white folks or the cops.
Yeah, what's that term they was using when Obama got elected? What, post-racial? Whatever. Right. And then as soon as you walk out your door, you're like, hold on, what happened? I thought racism was over. Like, yeah. Why is this white lady all in the corner when we going up in the elevator at work? Like, we work at the same place. I got a badge to get through. Like, what you expect me to do to you? Like, yeah, man, it's crazy.
So what's the age, man? Y'all boys both gonna be, one is 17, one is about to be. What's the age y'all first had that conversation, man?
Shoot, I had mine with Sean. Sean was 8 or 9, I think, when Trayvon got murdered, and it was wild because his conversation with us, we were walking and it was a little chilly outside, and he was like, I can't wear a hoodie. And this is his perspective. And that shook me, because it's like, okay, hold on, why do you feel that way? Like, we see Mark Zuckerberg walk around in all his meetings, that's all he used to wear. Like, it's a little different now, that money changing for him now, but I mean, shoot, on the come up at 1 million and maybe on his first billion, Mark Zuckerberg wore his hoodies all over the place. You see these people with their Harvard hoodies all the time, but for us to wear a hoodie, that's a target, right? You know, so that was the first, again, around when Trayvon happened, that was the first conversation I was having with him and his brother, and it shook me just to be able to realize, like, hey, I gotta have these conversations, and now I'm having them, like Kenny said, I'm having them on a regular basis. And so I'm mixing these conversations on, you know, your interactions with police. Now I'm making sure I'm reiterating conversations about, you know, how to behave around women. Because I want them to understand the ideas of consent as well. I mean, it's the perfect time. I got their attention, so let's have all these conversations at once. You know, how to understand, don't, like Desmond's he's turning 17, he'll be out to college. Like, hey, if you out with somebody and they get too drunk, like, you know, put her on the couch and stay away from her, man. Like, that's not the time. So these are the conversations that, like Kenny said, sad enough, we haven't yearly, sometimes biannually. Like, it's, you know, it's ridiculous, man. But I mean, it's necessary for us, for our kids to just survive now.
Can't run from the conversation no more. You know, this is one of them conversations you have like the birds and the bees. Yeah, you gotta have it.
Yep.
I actually think it starts a little bit earlier than that, and I think for me it's not even having that real. I mean, my son is 3 years old, so you know we're not sitting down just chopping it up, but it's more so of understanding everything in the news and how little Black boys get treated differently growing up. And my son is very expressive, right? So just like every other kid, right? But seeing him as a young Black boy, now I'm thinking like, okay, if you're going to school and you get a little too excited and you're playing around and roughhousing, you're going to be seen as rambunctious. You can't control yourself. You're not listening to the rules. And I know we've all seen articles of the suspensions rates gone up, or getting expelled, getting kicked out of school. So now, to Kenny's point, like, it's sad that, you know, I have to tell my son, like, don't be too excited, don't be doing this, don't be doing that, don't horseplay around too much, because you're not counted the same as someone else. You're seen as more so of, you know, oh, he's a distraction in the classroom, rather than, you know, he's just 3 years old.
Right.
So it's very difficult trying to raise him, because I want him to be expressive. I want him to have fun, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, you leave these doors, don't have fun. Don't be that way. You can only do that when you're out, you know, when you're with us. You're right.
But we're conditioned
Exactly.
that way. We're conditioned that way every turn. Like, you look at, even when it comes to us playing sports, like every time it's, oh, we'll play the right way, or act like you've been here before. Like, we can't celebrate our joy when we do something heroic. You know, that they put us on TV as their avatars on the weekends, but it's we got to avatar the right way. You know, so, and that's not us though. We celebratory, we're expressive, we're loud, you know, we're boisterous when it comes to things that we've done right. And it's, I mean, how do you tell somebody after you just knock down the triple double and you know, hit the game winning shot, fade away, don't be too expressive? Like, that's crazy.
Systematic racism on so many different levels, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, look what we discussed. Like, the 3-year-old, he can't be a certain way because we don't want him to be labeled. A 17-year-old, he can't be a certain way because we don't want him going to jail. In sports, you can't be a certain way because we don't want you to be that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, when can we be who we are as Black people, that y'all keep making this money off of us, but then we got to be a certain way for y'all? It's the same thing with the protests. We want you to do it peacefully. All right, then we start rioting. Well, why can't y'all just do it peacefully? Like, what do y'all want us to do? And we need to stop trying to figure out what they want us to do. We need to really come together and just figure out, like, what are we going to do, right? We don't have to agree from everything from A to Z, but we can collectively come together and agree on most things and literally get some stuff done. I think with our people, unfortunately, it's like, I agree with A, I agree with B, I agree with C. But D and E, I don't. So forget you. I'm gonna go my other way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now the next person is like, well, no, I agree with A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I don't know about if I agree with Z. You didn't got all the way to Z, and I don't agree. So, like, we need to just come together and realize, like, we don't have to agree on every single item, but let's come together collectively and see what's best for us as a unit, not us individually, but as a unit, to make things better for us. And we just have to really be ourselves, man. We need to stop all the BS, and man, I'm really frustrated with the all dynamics of, let me just play the game with them, you know, and then I'll bring y'all in. Like, we've learned that that's really some BS nowadays too, man. Most people ain't really do. They getting in and they staying in and they keeping it to themselves. And we just need to, like, literally just be ourselves. I mean, look at the NBA, what's going on with Kyrie and the rest of the league. Kyrie's talking about starting the league, which we all been talking about doing that stuff for a long time, but look how he getting dragged under the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to stop fighting the fight and each other. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, that's a big hurdle for us as Black folk.
So I got a question then. So we just sat here and said that so we can all say, and just tell me if I'm wrong. So there's racial disparities where usually black people, Black women in particular, are at the bottom. Do we agree with that in this country, in this world?
Yeah. Black women are
Right.
protected, you know, wonderful resource that we have on this earth, man.
All right. Who that? So right. So this too. Can we say that there's a vast educational gap in between the races to where Black and Hispanics are usually at the bottom?
Due to resources and access, yeah.
All right. So can we say that the wealth gap, the money, the economics, is there a gap racially as well?
Yeah.
To where Black and brown people are on the bottom, right?
Yeah. It's 125 for a white family and about 5 for a Black family.
Yeah. And another thing, politically, and you say that there's a vast gap in political power when it comes to the majority white, then it comes to Black and Hispanics, and we say that.
Yeah, look in the Senate right now. There's like 2 or 3 Black people. The entire Senate.
Well, my question to all that is, why is that? Why can we see the light turning red and we still drive through? You know what I'm saying? Why are we looking?
Change takes a long time. This change takes a long time. Remember how we talked about earlier, your oppressor is telling you that change takes a long time. So they want you complacent for a while. And they're going to keep telling you change is coming. We're going to get better. We're going to get better. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Just like I'm just speaking for me, Kenny Presley. I'm speaking for me, nobody else. A whole lot of that BS is going on with these companies. Like, it's the thing to do right now with the whole Black Lives Matter stuff, right? I don't give a damn about that. What are you doing to hire us in management positions that we can actually help bring other people up? We don't have to always be the best of the best in order to be something. And that's the biggest thing to us. Yeah. So we're going to always continuously be in that gap if we continuously stay complacent and just allow them to continue to tell us, just wait, just be patient, just be patient.
Well, that was
like I said, but why do you go ahead, Mike?
That was a big line in what's that, Queen and Slim? When Daniel, I'm gonna mess up his last name, but
don't do it. Dude from Get Out.
Dude from Get Out. He was having a conversation with the lady at the beginning of the movie, and she said something about Black excellence, hashtag Black excellence. And it was a simple conversation, and a simple question was like, well, why do we have to be excellent? And it's like everything you have to be like the same conversation we have all the time. You got to be 2 times better just to be in that presence, just to be on that level. And that shouldn't be. Like, we shouldn't have to be 2 times better just to be considered, a millionaire or being like, Rihanna can't even get on that list, and they just threw Kylie Jenner on there, and now we find out all her books is wrong. And Rihanna just been killing it with her business. So, I mean, it's the same thing on every level, whereas we're forced to excel and forced to put forth that extra effort. And man, like, I'm tired.
So my question is this to anybody, still, why do you think that is? Like, why is that the mindset of the world and of our people? Like Kenny just said, we're willing to say, man, change it's gonna take a long time. We're willing to say, hey, we'll wait. And we're willing to say this after waiting. Like, this is like a toxic relationship. Like us, like Black African people in America, is like a toxic, it's like a bad relationship, man. Like, how long do you tell somebody to stay in a bad relationship when they're continuously being abused, they're continuously being misused, and they're continuously being silent? Like, that's the relationship we have with America. With our relationship with America is one where it's a do as I say, not as I do, and don't complain or say anything about that. And from my point of view, I'm about not worrying about what anybody else has to say about us. Like, we just need to do for us. Like, we see what's going on. We see that there's the wealth gap. We see the education gap. We see the political gap. We see the economic gap, the healthcare gap, all that. We need to start doing things in our own community, like educating, inspiring, just being there, putting in the resources, like going there, being with the people. And now, even with COVID, you can still do that with everybody's online. Everybody's online. Utilize your platform, man. It's nothing to educate people and tell them about who they are or where their resources can come from. For example, this voting season, man, I really think every 18-year-old needs to be empowered with a voter registration card. And they need to be empowered to where not worrying about so much the national elections, but empower them with the knowledge that you're really voting for the person that decides the water you drink, the quality of the water you drink. You're voting for the person that decides the quality of your streets. You're voting for the person that decides the quality of your education. Like that's what you need to be voting on. Your local politics that are right here. Vote for the people on your school board, your alderman, your councilman. That's who you need to be focused on, because you're if you even if you leave and go to college, you still a resident of that county. Like take care of your people, man. Like put your vote in, be educated on who is running for what, and then make those educated decisions. Not gonna tell you who to vote for, but I would just rather you be educated on voting, because that's a to me, that's a responsibility that you need to have in your own community. And the reason why I say that, man, it's an old saying, like everybody says, but if voting wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to take it from them. For example, Mississippi put the first black senator in Congress right after slavery was over, because black people had the majority, like they were right there and they exercised their right. They put a lot of more senators and House of Representative people in, and then what started happening? Jim Crow. When Jim Crow happened, we slashed our power in half, well, drastically, and our power was taken. And it went to the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act that we got that power back, but they still are doing shit like the voter registration IDs and they're still doing things. And when I say they, America is still doing things to disenfranchise our vote. And so my question, when I asked why, I want to hear everybody's opinion on why. I think in my head, well, what I've done, I think it's because of cultural conditioning and what you spoke to earlier, Kenny. 1619, when they brought that boat full of Africans over, they set the tone for what Africans were supposed to be in this country. And also the Aboriginal Africans and natives that were already here. Like they made a choice on what our people were going to be in this society. So that never changed. Like even with the amendments, even with the clauses, that never changed. That mentality never changed. And that's why I think we're still in this cycle, because the system that we want to call broken, it was made this way. It just needs to be dismantled. I don't think you can, excuse my language, you can't reform shit into nothing else but another pile of shit. If it's shit, it's gonna stay that way. I don't care. You fossilize it, you put some more water on, you can do whatever you want to with it, but it's gonna be excrement. That's what it's gonna be.
But let me touch on a point before we get too far ahead of ourselves, because I want to touch on a point.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I recognize just watching what happened in Georgia and seeing some of those people anecdotes is that outside of just voting and registering, we need to be working at the polls. It's enough, and I'm not gonna say it's enough. It's easy to just say, hey, go vote. Hey, do this. Hey, here's a card. Like that's the easy work. Like it's time for us to get uncomfortable, man. Like we need to take off, go out there and volunteer, man, and work at those polls so we know exactly what's going on. And when we see the things happening that shouldn't be happening, we can check it. Because again, if we're talking about our community, that needs to be us there. That needs to be, young Black men at the polls that's saying, hey, this is the right way to do this. This is the way it's supposed to go. Like we need to understand the whole infrastructure and how it works and how it functions to make sure that it's functioning the right way for us. And so that's the steps that we can take instead of, they yell vote or die, or this is the most important election every year. And every time they're a step ahead of us. The people that don't want us to do things, they're a step ahead of us. So that's like, let's get there. That opportunity is there for us. This next election, I decided I'm gonna vote early, and on voting day, I'm gonna go volunteer. So, because I don't want that happening to my people. And to talk about your reform conversation, where they talk about the training and they need extra training, and specifically the police, like you can't train people who don't want to be trained. Like half of Atlanta cops didn't show up to work last night.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sorry, that ain't fun. That's not funny.
but it is though. Like it's sad because they talk about they're not a gang and this and that, but that's the way they carry themselves. Oh, that's childish. Like, yeah, that's childish. Hey, you can't kill black people, so I'm not gonna show up to work. That's and you can't retrain that. I don't know what the correct answer is as far as like people saying defund the police. Like I don't know what the correct answer is, but I know for sure that if I take a training class to all those people that didn't show up to work, that's not going to change the behavior.
Yeah, and it, like you said, if it's shit from the beginning, that's what it's gonna be. Like you can't make somebody be a human being. Like that's something you have to either be born with, or you just not a human being. And it does, and it's not that hard. And for those cops and for those police not to show up, it just, I mean, they took an oath. You know what I'm saying? And to me, they're going against that oath. And you know, there's people out there that say, oh, they're people too. They're going through a whole lot. You know, they was talking about that officer that was distraught over that McMuffin. I saw that the yesterday, I think, and you know, they feeling sorry for the officer, but and you know what, I'm not gonna tell nobody where. I'm not into that about telling you where to put your passions and your concerns. I'm not about that. But what I want you to also do is understand that same empathy that you could have and seeing that weariness on the police and the cops. Like, could you imagine the people that have been going through cycles and generations of the same thing and seeing the same? Can you imagine the psyche of us seeing black man after black woman after black child being gunned down, being mass incarcerated, being just left desolate? Can you imagine the mind of a black person, of an African person in this world? Can you imagine that? But there's nothing, like I said, I'm not gonna tell you where to put your passions or your concerns. But I just want you to also think, if you can, that was what, a couple of days ago, about last weekend, almost 7 days. If you could think 7 days, and how long have these protests been going on? 19, 20 days. If you could think of that as being so burdensome on the country and society, think about the 400. I mean, you talked about, Mike, the 400 plus. Think about the plus part. That's what gets, it's the plus. ... Because it ain't ending. It's the never ending story. I just want people to think about that. And if you don't think about that, I would like our people to think on that level, because that's the way that we can come up out of that. Because if you think about the trauma and experiences your mind going through for all these years, let's change that, man. Let's learn about who we are. And that way we won't operate under these false assumptions of what, like I said, I think African American is just a made up term. They gave us a name because they think about, we've gone through so many names and so many classifications that they just keep changing us when they get ready and comfortable.
Yeah, but before we wrap up, because we pushing 8, your parents.
You know, we got longer than an hour if you unless you gotta go.
Yeah, I got stuff to do.
I got a child, so I got.
Yeah. So just speak on your experience though, since your parents are Nigerian. Like, what's the conversations they had with you? How was that? You know, probably different from. I'm pretty sure it was different than the conversations my parents had with me when it came to concerning cops and stuff.
And where were you born? You were born in America?
Yeah, I was born in New York. So I mean, for us, so my parents came over here in the 80s, and I'm the only one that was born here. 3 other siblings. So for us, it was more so of my parents just not really understanding at first, just the little nuances of the systemic part. And it's always not the outward racism. It's the, wait, was that and questioning it. So my parents, slowly but surely, they were like, this is not right, and they got hit real quick. So what they did when they were raising us, we were very sheltered. Like, it wasn't no going to no one's house. We weren't doing no sleepovers. Come home after school, do your homework, try to present yourself in a proper way, because they saw it. They saw it happening because it was happening to them at work. My dad, I mean, whew, he told me the stories working at Georgetown at NIH as a scientist, and he was just like, at first I was so ignorant. I was like, nah, no one would try to jeopardize your experiment or try to, do stuff like that. And I'm like, then I'm thinking like, would they? And then it was so different. So the conversations were more so of the fact that it was almost a twofold conversation. And we've talked about this internally because back in the 80s, there was a very big disruption between just within our community of Africans and Black Americans, right? So it was, oh, do we accept them? Do we not? You guys are different. We're not from Africa. You don't know our struggle, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of contention because we just, we didn't understand each other growing up, right? But now we're at the point of, no, we're all one people. We have this, because outwardly, if me,
they're not gonna shoot. They're not gonna stop shooting you because he's an African, not the
right. If me, you, Kenny, Jelani walk into a bar, I'm Black, blackly, black, and that's what it is. So it's very easy to just look and you're like, the same things, the same struggles, the same predispositions that they have is they're going to have for me. And it was just like, all right, it's just layered on, and just the different nuances that they give you, like, oh, you're smart, you're this, you're that. I'm like, was I not supposed to be? And I had a conversation with one of my VPs, and he just didn't understand. Like, people know, like, hey, you have such white teeth. I was like, you know what that means to me? That means I'm smiling a lot. And it's like, you know why I'm smiling a lot? Because I don't even know that I'm trying to disarm people before I first meet them. Yep. I have to smile so I don't seem like a threat. And I'm that nice, happy-go-lucky Black guy that is not here to mess up your day. And let's keep it moving. Even in a conversation about, you can get really heated conversation. I know we all get this at work. Like, if we're never the first ones to speak up when we disagree, like, nope, don't do it. We're just like, you know what, let's let it ride. They'll learn later. Because if we bring any contention to the room, I forgot which one of you guys said it, but we become the angry Black man. Right. Why? Just because we didn't agree. We didn't go with the consensus. So I think my growing up was just like, okay, this ain't no different. Like, the conversation is more so of, oh, we're here and we're here now. I don't think it was too far different from yours, Mike, but we just didn't have that history rooted within America. But we still had our, when I went back to Nigeria, we have a slave museum. We see it all. Like, there is that stuff. So the stuff that we see in DC, the African American Museum, we have a museum just like that. And it's actually even more terrifying because you walk on the beach and you're like, yep, here's where the boats came. Yep, this is where they snatched them up. You're like, this is wild.
That was rough for me when I was over there on the beach. Like, I mean, hell, I can't say for sure that was a beach, but I'm on the beach in Nigeria and I'm just looking like, yo, like, what are the chances that this was one of the beaches?
Right.
And I'm standing here on this beach right now, 400 years later, in a position where I'm here on vacation. Juxtapose, my ancestors being taken away from this beach, and that was a rough, like, seriously, I don't know if Aze caught it, but like for 30 minutes, I'm on the beach just stuck. Just stuck because that's all I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, and even to that point, you're thinking far 400 plus years ago. We just had this conversation with our buddies. If you have a grandparent that has a parent, they were in slavery. Think about that. Just people think slavery was just so long ago. If you have a grandparent that had a parent, they were a slave. It was not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when we say 400 plus years, 400 plus years, 400 plus years. Like, nah, we just count 2 dots back on the family tree and then boom. And people are like, oh, wow, that's wild, right? And you're like, yeah, that is wild. Now think about that, you know? And I think that's when people start to realize, like, you know, let's start to change the narrative. Let's start to get uncomfortable, because let's have those uncomfortable. I'm done saying like, hey, how was your weekend? You know, I just started telling people, I was like, man, it was rough. Why? You know, black people getting shot. You know, people like, oh, I mean, like, what you want me to say? They're like, how does that affect me? It affects me a lot because I have a child. I don't know if I go out there and be an innocent black man just trying to grocery shop. I'm not saying that no one is. I have a direct target, me myself on my back, but I don't know a situation where I can just be perceived as the wrong person. I've been run up on by the cops and they were like, yo, you fit the description. I'm just like, nah, homie, that's not me. And they're like, yeah, well, this and that and the third. And it's just like, y'all are really reaching right now, but I'm not gonna prolong. This is just in college.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, well, I see where this is going. They're like, where's your student ID? Here it is. It's like, okay, well, go on your way. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna continue doing what I was doing. So it's interesting.
But I think that's what we take for granted sometimes, that we think that we can't be the one. We actually can, because all it takes is the right situation. Black people are tired of being pulled over, tired of being this, tired of being that. We don't have the best attitudes. You know, we've so much emotion that we have to deal with this systemic racism. Look at all that we talked about. We talked about a 3-year-old. We talked about 17-year-old. We talked about at work. We talked about disarming white folks for just being being ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, like that stuff, man, it weighs on us. Like it's a burden on us sometimes. So when a white cop just pulls you over, when you know you didn't do anything wrong, or it's something light, you're not gonna have an attitude. But they want you to be all smiling and stuff, be like, yes, sir, let me get my ticket, sir. I'm gonna be right on my way. Like, that's not black people today. So then they it's just so many dynamics to us that we literally a hashtag away. And I don't try to use that as hyperbole, but that's truth though. Like, we are a hashtag ourselves away, because we could be mad for something at work, we could be mad at something at home, we could be mad, whatever the case may be. Somebody just pulled off in front of us, man. We aggravated, we get pulled over. Like, we're not gonna have the best attitudes.
But I'm gonna correct you right there, Kenny. But I'm gonna not to cut you off, but I don't even think it's about we don't have the best attitudes. I think it's more so of the fact that you have a bad day, Kenny. Tom has a bad day. He's white. But if we both get pulled over, Tom can respond to having a bad day and a white cop can understand that. But if Kenny had a bad day, he's just like, whoa, you're being aggressive towards me. Why are you acting that way? And I think that is one of the main issues of that prejudgment of like this aggression, and they're thinking like, oh, it's towards them. Like, nah, yo, I just had a bad day, and I know that you pulled me over some BS. I literally had a conversation with my coworker last week, and he was talking about being in Houston, and it was a work zone, and the cop pulled him over, and he gave the cop an earful. And I'm just sitting there like, yo, you said that? You said all that? I was like, man, you told him he should have pulled you over? Wow. Yeah. This is after the cop said, I'm going to give you a warning. He was like, well, if you're going to give me a warning in the first place, why'd you even pull me over? You know, like that work vehicle. I mean, he was just talking. And I'm like, bro, do you understand? If I had said 2 more words, I'd have been outside the car, handcuffed for like verbal abuse or something. I just like, look, sometimes we just have to take that ticket or whatever it is and eat it and just keep moving.
My coworker said the same thing. He's like, the cop stopped him for a light. Like Kenny, you said, the cop stopped him for a light. He said he got out the car and
he got out the car.
He said he
ain't trying to move.
And was like in the back there, like, right, that's us. 10 and 2. That's us.
That is too.
Then he got out the car and had a full-on like argument with the cop. I just said calmly, you know I couldn't do that, right? And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, I can't have that same conversation that you have with the cop. He's like, yes, you can. Like, dude, what world do you live in? So
it's that cultural conditioning, man. Like he's culturally conditioned to think that the way he lives is the way everyone else lives. And nah, man, especially us, like, you know, we ain't trying to get out the car. I don't want to get out the car. I hope he don't come up to the car. I hope it's a mistaken identity. He thought something else was going on, but nevertheless, it's never that. Always something, man. So yeah, it's that culturally conditioned. But I think what we can do, and with the interaction with the police, man, that's tough. So I don't know. What I've learned to do is, like you said, I'm just and to my point, to this point, it don't matter because you could do everything right, and as a black man, you could still end up in a body bag. And they ask us questions about, like, why do they run? Why do you run? I'm like this. Look, man, any of us on here, I believe, if we get pulled over and, like, say we got a little warrant for a traffic ticket or something, we getting out that night. Like, all we gotta do is get to the ATM car or whatever. We finna go call somebody. We getting out. Some brothers and sisters ain't gonna get out. Khalif Browder went to jail for a backpack he didn't even steal. And he was there for 3 years because his bail was $3,000. And I believe the bond ended up being like $900. And they had a hard time getting it. When they finally got it, it came back to when he got rearrested, he violated his probation because he had got caught earlier riding in a truck with some other kid when he was younger. But the fact is, he should have never been arrested for that false identity.
Yep.
But like I said, they didn't have the legalese or the power or us on here. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying this any kind of like with any like braggadocious way. I just believe like we can get out that night. All we gotta do is get to our money. So with us, it would behoove us maybe to just go ahead and take the ticket. But like I said, there are no guarantees as a black person.
Here's the thing. The media highlights us for running, but there's stories of other races running as well. Like, we're not the only ones that run.
Yeah.
We just end up dead when we run. So
yeah, we end up dead. Because I think those people probably face the same dilemma.
Right.
I can't go to jail.
Exactly. It's just the fact that, they have the same dilemma, and when we have that dilemma, it's just like, all right, well, if you're running, so your dilemma is completely different because you're running from something totally different, and we're categorized wrong, and we end up dead. I mean, it's just, is it right to run? No, because it was, some stories are just like, dang, I wish you just weren't that fearful. I don't know your circumstance, but we're not given the benefit of the doubt of, we weren't in our right mind, we have a mental health issue, there's anxiety, there's stress, there's something wrong. We're just seen as he's a runner, he's a criminal,
and it's possible you got your ass beat up by the laws before.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to my cousin got murdered by the Arlington PD. Y'all know the story. Yeah. He got out and ran because 2 years before that, they beat him up and nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? So he like, nah, this ain't gonna happen to me again. He said, I'm not gonna allow that to happen to me. So he got out running. They ended up shooting, him, and unfortunately he passed away. But at the same time, situations like that, it's always an excuse for us. And then they always vilify the man or woman who has died after the fact. That only happens with our race. Like, they go back and they find out everything negative. And they ask all those questions because the media plays a huge part. Malcolm X said this back in the day, and I think the media is our biggest enemy. So like, you have all these narratives being created by white folk, the media, and even within our own, that like it's nothing that we can do other than be like, yes, sir, let me get this ticket, sir. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, that's all we can do for somebody white to be like, that's the way he should be acting. Because we're in a lose-lose situation regardless.
Yeah, I just
And,
don't like
and
when people say like, well, because you see all the commentary like, well, if you just listened or if you just, just get yourself out the situation, but you're not in that situation when a cop is talking to you and you just know they are trying to get you to react wrong, like literally looking at you trying to disrespect all pieces of you and just sit there and just take it. And they're like, well, if you just listened and if you just did that, and like, it's hard to just listen when someone is in your face or trying to get you to react. Like they're looking it through their lens, because when a cop probably talks to them, it's just like, hey man, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, tough day, me too, blah, blah, blah. Not to say I haven't had that conversation with a cop before, but then there are also other cops that are just like, hey man, you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, whoa, sorry, are you having a bad day? Are you asking questions? I didn't ask you to talk. And you're like, whoa, I'm just trying to have to start a conversation. License registration. You're like, all right, I already know this is one of those situations where you're trying to get me amped, not falling for it. Here you go. And, you just give up. But they think that the conversation literally is, hey man, how you doing, brother? Hey, I saw you were going a little bit over the speed limit. Did you know that? Let me see you. Can you kindly give me your registration and license? Like, nah, it's not like that. It's like,
it's always where you going, who you know there, where you coming
right.
from. It's like
And
all
you're
these
just like,
invasive
what
questions.
does
Why
that
you
have
headed
to
to
do
go
with
fast?
anything?
Why you in a hurry?
Has nothing to do with anything. And also these brothers and sisters are probably, running scared because we just saw a man get handcuffed and get his neck nipped on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And we've also heard of a young lady by the name of Breonna Taylor who was just shot to death in her crib and her killer still roam free. Like we have those mentals in our mind. Like when we like, black people just gonna get up like, man, I'm finna run from the police today. Like, that's what I'm finna do. Like, no, it's not in our mental. We don't get up and say, man, I'm just gonna burn down Target and CVS. That's not what we do. We don't get up. But when you're tired and you don't have anything else and you're afraid and you're fearful and you just fed up, man, that's what happens. That's why America is in this situation it is now. And this ain't different from no other situation. America has never been a peaceful nation. Out of the 200 plus years we've been a country, what I think it's 22 years, 20 some years they haven't been in a war. So this isn't a peaceful nation. So when they talk about riots, a riot is a violent disturbance of the peace. Like there is no peace to be disturbed. America has always been burning. It ain't just been Mississippi. America has always been burning. America is on fire.
Shoot, we celebrate the Tea Party, right? They got a branch of the Republican Party that's the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party wasn't. It ain't the same type of Tea Party I'm having with my daughter. That was a riot.
They was protesting like up there.
Yeah, that wasn't a peaceful protest. And we're taught that in the history books. You know.
So that's my thing about that. It's cultural condition on both sides. That's why it's up to us to undo that cultural condition in our neighborhood. And with that being said, to me, I think that would inspire and really push our children to be more inclined politically, more inclined economically, more inclined educationally. Because if we put it in your head, think about this. Your history as African American man, I'm just gonna tell you what I thought. All I heard was slaves came from Africa. I didn't hear people came from Africa. I didn't hear kings, carpenters, doctors, queens. I didn't hear that. I heard slaves came from Africa. That's what I was taught. So in my head, nothing good came from Africa. But luckily, my mother taught history, and she's from Mississippi, born and raised. So she was already on it. My dad was really into that's my name, Jelani. Like they named me African name. My name is Swahili. So they were already on that. But I'm telling you, the onslaught is there from 5 years old, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, learning in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Like the onslaught is very young. Because as kids, we repetitive. Like you don't learn your ABCs, you learn the song. And you sing the song, A, B, C. You don't really, because you say, what's the 17th letter of the alphabet? Don't nobody know. But sing it. A, B, you count to 17, you're gonna figure it out. So you learn by repetition, and that repetition is done as soon as you step foot into that school of kindergarten. And it's up to us as parents and as community leaders to undo what has been done. Like all our history has been taken out. Like let's start with who we are, where we actually come from. Because when you see that, then that's what you pull from instead of, oh, we didn't start here. We was here. Like we've always been here. That's why you can explain the successions of Africans and Black people, even though we were deemed to be here. You can see the Madam C.J. Walker. You can see the Eli. You can see like all our Black Garrett Morrison, all our Black inventors, Charles Drew, Dr. Charles Drew. You can see Ernest Everett Young. You can see all our inventors and people, Mae Jemison, all our successes, because what we came from is greatness. What you taught us was bullshit. So it's up to us to go through the bullshit that has been taught and to actually just create a pride and you know, not even create, just push a pride within us and our people and our children. Because I feel like then we won't be so quick to be trying to accept it into places that don't want us there anyway. Like we won't even worry about it. We create our own spaces. We create our own, you know, I saw this post the other day, man. It was a Black-owned bus line back in the day when there was the Montgomery boy bus boycott, when it was the Montgomery bus boycott, and that Black bus line went out of business because everybody integrated. So when they integrated, they was like, yeah, we're gonna sit on the back of this bus and not ride the brothers bus. You know, it was there, and that comes from being culturally conditioned. It's a need to be wanted and accepted, and we're enough, man. But that's up to us, our generation, to pull back into the other generation and the ones that come after us. Hey, man, you're enough, and what you're doing is well. So let's push that, because with this cultural conditioning, man, until we have a revolution of the mind, everything is going to continue to be the same. We need to change our mind and change ours, because we can't worry about how everybody else is going to look at us. We just need to teach ourselves and keep ourselves inclined. And then maybe we will start to see the change, because it's inevitable, man. But we got to pour it into it. And we got it. We got it in us. That's why we started Black to Life. Like, it's not just a name, bringing love and conscious knowledge to life. That is what we are here for. That's what we will continue to do, man, as brothers. We will continue to do that.
Well, we're going to continue tomorrow because I got to go.
Me
I know,
too.
man.
I got a kid.
That was my last part, and everybody else want to say anything. We finna be out Facebook. We appreciate y'all watching us. We finna upload this to our YouTube channel. We got a Black to Life YouTube channel. Y'all go check that out. We be having some videos where we read to kids, as well as our kickback conversations, and our Financial Fridays will also be loaded on there. So thank you, people. I want to thank Mike, and Kenny for hollering at the brothers and hollering at the people, man. Appreciate y'all. People, we out. Y'all take care out there, man.
Have a great evening, guys.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all.